So Dan, what do you suggest people do? People at work and most of us send and receive email pretty much all day long.
Yeah, I think before we talk about what people should do, I think it's important to examine our fundamental mindsets about email. We tend to think, we tell ourselves this story that we're so essential to the organization's existence that it can't survive without our 10 administrations for more than 10 minutes or so. And so when I talk to people all the time, they say, I have to respond immediately. People expect me to respond immediately. That's the culture of our organization. And the truth is that's generally not true. That if the CEO or the president of an organization needs you immediately, they'll send an email and they'll call you and they'll send one of their minions to hunt you down like a dog. They will not rely exclusively on an email. And in fact, there are plenty of times when people are not accessible via email. For example, if you're doing a radio show, or if you're talking to a customer, or if you're in a meeting with the president. So there are plenty of times that our colleagues and our bosses survive without us being on email. And that proves, to me, that's evidence that, in fact, we can step away from our devices. And that's important because if we have that mindset first, that yes, we can step away from email, yes, we can step away from text messages or whatever the communication medium we're talking about is, then that opens up a conversation about what we can do. But until you have that understanding and that knowledge, you're going to be shackled to your inbox.
But Dan, are you saying that either we're just not that important or this stuff can wait, that we don't, and I often think that any kind of text or email is very Pavlovian. I mean, you feel like, a pigeon going after something or a rat in a maze. You hear the ping and you feel like you're either salivating or you feel like you have to respond. And you're saying, Dan, you don't have to do that?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And I think that we have to certainly have service level agreements with our customers, with our bosses, with our colleagues. But oftentimes, most times, organizations don't have these agreements. They don't have understandings of how are we going to communicate about truly urgent matters. And again, if something is truly urgent, if the building's on fire, they're not going to announce this via email. There's going to be a PA announcement because it's important that it's critical that people hear that right now. So it's not that I'm saying we're not important,
right.
Although I suspect that none of us are important to our organizations as we think we are, or we like to think we are, but rather that not every incoming message is that urgent and important. And the problem, of course, with email is that we can't tell whether it's urgent or not, if it's important or not, until we've looked at it. And as Professor Mark has demonstrated so many times in her research, once you look to see whether it's urgent and important, you've already lost the game.
Oh, that's so interesting. Gloria, Mark, do you want to weigh in on that at all?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right when you talk about the Pavlovian process here. So I believe that people are compelled to check email. So email has just become habitual. So, people average, if we just look at our data, people average checking email about 74 times a day. And in fact, in one of our studies, the high person checked it 373 times a day.
I don't even know how to calculate that.
Oh my gosh.
But I believe you, Gloria. No, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what the data shows. But, people can respond to email through external notifications, or they can self-interrupt. And what we found was really interesting is that if the external notifications are turned off, or even external interruptions in the environment go down, what happens is people's self-interruptions tend to kick in. So, if you look at, say, an hour where external interruptions are really high, that's driving people's behavior because they have to respond to the demands of the workplace. When those external interruptions wane, what happens is people begin to self-interrupting, and they get up to the same level of interruption frequency. And so it suggests that people are in a kind of mode where they just have to self-interrupt, whether it's we don't know whether it's learned from experience, or whether it's social norms, or what's really behind this. I think it's probably a combination of a lot of different things.
Nancy,
Yeah.
looks like you want to weigh in on this as well.
So I think that's really fascinating. The kind of the pacing implications of self-interrupting, right? Is that helping us, or is that because of these kind of distractions that we've become accustomed to? I think it's really fascinating. I also want to comment on something that Dan said earlier, which is the mindset that we have to sort of get ourselves into. And I think that he alluded to something that is really critical, which is that it's not just us as individuals that have to rethink our mindset, but it's the organization around us that has to endorse and be okay with the fact that we're stepping away, or that we're in a mode where we're not constantly available 24/7. You ping me, I immediately ping you back. And so I think that there has to also be education and awareness from the organization's perspective, from your boss's perspective, from your peers' perspective, that it's okay to do that.
Well, Dan, let me go.
If I could jump in
Yeah,
for
go
a
ahead,
minute,
Dan.
Nancy, I think you're absolutely right. But I think we don't want to have a false choice here between being immediately responsive and not immediately responsive. I think the discussion should be, and you're absolutely right, there should be a conversation internally, is if I need you to be immediately responsive, how am I going to get you? Is it going to be via text message? Is it going to be PA systems? Is it going to be smoke signals, interpretive dance? It could be anything, as long as everyone internally agrees that this is what we do when we need you, stat.
Absolutely. I think that's really spot on, because I think that this piece about, you have to, figure out another way, and email is clearly not the way, right? Picking up the phone and calling is a much better option, right?
But people don't do that anymore.
They do. If they really want you, they'll call you, right? They will. If you're not responding and they need you, as Dan said, they will call. They'll find you if they really need you.
Yeah, they'll call and say, I just sent you an email. Did you get it?
I know. I've gotten those phone calls. Well, I do want to, we need to take a very short break, and I do want to get back to just about everything that all three of you have said, and also just to remind all of us that we are also talking about productivity and how disruptions and interruptions, distractions impact productivity. Talking with Nancy Rothbard from the Wharton School here in Philadelphia, Gloria Mark from the University of California at Irvine, and Dan Markovitz, president of Markovitz Consulting, and teaches at Stanford University's Continuing Studies program. And we are talking about distractions, interruptions, and productivity. 1-888-477-9499. Send us an email, radiotimes@whyy.org, and you can tweet us at WHYY Radio Times. And do stay with us. Much more after this short break. We'll be right back.
Do you know someone with mild to moderate Alzheimer's? A clinical trial is being conducted to evaluate the safety and effectiveness of a study drug for the treatment of symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. Qualified participants must be at least 50 years old and have a support person to attend study visits. Qualified participants receive study-related medical care, memory testing, and routine lab work. Details at 215-884-1700. 215-884-1700. The Clinical Trial Center supports WHYY.
After leaving the military, some vets get in trouble and land behind bars. Some prisons now house them in cell blocks organized like military units.
We want to recapture that positive stuff that they learned in the military and then have them apply it to civilian life.
A program to keep vets from becoming repeat offenders. Later on All Things Considered from NPR News.
This afternoon at 4 on WHYY.
Frederick Living supports WHYY. Frederick Living, a continuing care retirement community nestled in the beautiful countryside of Montgomery County, is proud to announce the expansion of their campus. The meadows at Frederick Living will consist of 55 cottages clustered in an innovative design based on the pocket neighborhood concept. Frederick Living is now taking reservations. Visits can be scheduled by calling 610-754-7878. That's 610-754-7878. Frederick Living. Live well.
This is Radio Times here on WHYY in Philadelphia. I'm Marty Moscow-Wayne talking with Dan Markovitz, Gloria Mark, and Nancy Rothbard about interruptions at work, productivity, how to be more productive, resist interruptions, stay on task. And again, you can join the conversation at 1-888-477-9499.